Tell me, friend, where in the world are you viewing from before this story starts? Leave your nation or city in the comments section below. The reach of these Old West tales never ceases to inspire me. Traveling over rivers, plains, and oceans, to encounter compassionate eyes like yours is like dust on the wind. Under a sky so pale it appeared to be bone, the earth spread exhausted and dry. Shallow gusts of wind carried dust across fragile grass and fence posts that had not been pounded in years. Lawson Brant was standing next to his weathered well, filling a trough with water for his ancient gelling clay. His shoulders were square and quiet, and his face like leather that had been sun-cured. The only sounds in his world were the stream of planks and the occasional hawk cry, which felt louder than stillness. There was no music, no laughter, and no women's voices screaming from windows. He didn't think anyone would ride this deep into the valley, not unless they were trying to leave anything behind, were lost, or were dying. The man who staggered out of the glistening heat that morning had to squint more than usual because of this, a towering person bent with fatigue. Skin burned by time and the sun, ripped clothes. What was left of a tribal chief? Lawson didn't inquire. As the man drank like a dying animal too proud to ask, he simply walked to the well, drew another, pail, and held a steady. There was only a stiff nod, as if it cost him something, and no thanks. Without requesting bread or shade, the elderly guy sat beneath the cottonwood tree for over an hour before getting up. He barely once looked back at Lawson as he was leaving, and he was already on his way. The gaze had no significance. Not quite yet. Lawson gave Clay half a scoop more that evening, perhaps due to guilt. Perhaps to forget how the man's knees trembled as if his marrow had been stolen by the wind. After that, he watched the moonless blackness eat away at his landhole while sitting by himself in his rocking rocker on the porch. He didn't think anything would be carried back by the wind, but it did at morning. Along the trail, dust rose in steady, sluggish waves. Squinting into the sunrise, Lawson noticed 3 individuals coming toward him, 2 ladies on foot and 1 on horseback, who had a familiar stance. One walked with a straight gait as if she had learned to be proud. There was a tiredness about the other. Fast hands and eyes that are constantly close to her hip, as if something invisible may strike. Lawson's boots thudded quietly on compacted soil as he stepped off a porch. The leader got off his horse. "I owe you," he replied in a ragged, low voice. "However, I bring more than just debt." Lawson merely glanced at the females without saying anything. "My daughters," said the chief. "They are under pursuit. They are desired by men as war spoils. I no longer have a secure location to conceal them." Lawson's mouth tightened. "I have nowhere to put visitors." Next, create space. There was no demand. It was a father's final plea to the world to preserve what remained. Lawson took another look. The elder one was serene and lovely, but not in a way that demanded attention. She appeared accustomed to being disregarded. The younger, with more ferocious eyes, carried a knife that was now visible at her waist. There was no apologies in her demeanor. 2 days, said Lawson. They are welcome to stay for 2 days. The chief instantly nods. The older daughter made a very small bow that could have been caused by wind. The younger one remained silent. Lawson turned to reveal the vacant storeroom behind the barn to them. There was no need to translate the bitterness when he heard the younger mumble in a language he didn't comprehend. Without a ceremony, he left them there. He ate at the table in silence. That night, lo, the lantern flickered. The air felt thick, as like the land was waiting for something, even though there was no rain in the sky. The room door was open and cleanly swept in the morning. From the nail dangled a sprig of sage. Without being asked, the women had already begun working. One collected eggs. Without dropping a single drop, the other person milked his goat. He said nothing to them. However, a little loaf of cloth-wrapped fry bread was sitting on his porch that evening. Hours passed before he touched it. Lawson hadn't asked the females to go by the 3rd day, and they were still there. The leader had not come back. Nobody had, not even the wind, but a local person had spotted them. There were whispers in the saloon. When he rode in for salt, he heard it. A traitor and savage lover. In her grave, his Maud turned. Although his hands trembled when he tied the raindrops, Lawson remained silent, bought his salt, and moved through the bar like a man impervious to stings. He came home to a freshly cleaned goat stable, restocked herb jars, and a neatly made patch on his old duster. That evening he left a stack of firewood and a cloth-wrapped, sharpened hatchet at their door without asking who had done it. Aoka, the older girl, started accompanying him on walks while he was doing chores. Their rhythm matched, but they weren't next to him. They were a few feet behind. She would hand the next board while he hammered a nail. She would refill his cup as he paused for water. T, the younger one, softens as well, though sporadically. She wouldn't look at him for days after leaving untamed flowers on the porch. After cleaning the snake's skin with her bare hands, she left it hanging next to the smokehouse. Lawson started to dream once more, but this time it was of silence that didn't ache. Not of ladies, wind, warmth, or the scent of sage and ironed linen. The barn was then set on fire. It took place at night. Flames ripped through like a court of law. Lawson shouted as he rushed in the door, only partially clothed. Water had already been drawn for Tiva. Goats were hauled out by the horns by Aoka. Ash fell like snow and sparks rose like stars. He walked barefoot across coals to carry tea. After crying once, she swallowed her tears. Before morning, the fire extinguished. With his hands frozen in his lap, Lawson sat on the ground. Aoka arrived and sat next to him. She was silent as she reached out and lightly placed her palm over his. A touch like breath only once. "I apologize," she said. "This is what we brought." He gave a headshake. Fire doesn't require a cause. He discovered the knife that T had previously carried at his door the following morning. The land slowly started to grow anew after a gift and a trust, as if it wasn't sure it deserved it. Lawson did the barn's reconstruction by hand. Aoka provided verbal assistance. She dabbed at her perspiration and sung once, so softly that the wind almost drowned it out. The words were not asked by him, as though quiet itself were learning to talk. He simply listened. Weeks went by. The chief didn't come back for another month. Why didn't Lawson inquire? However, Aoka brought stew to his porch one evening. They ate in quiet while sitting next to one another. Her voice was quiet as she said, "You're not like them." "I'm not sure what I am anymore." She gave him a look. I really did look. And Lawson didn't avert his gaze for the first time. He waited till the oil ran out before extinguishing the lantern that evening. However, where men harbor ancient animosities, peace does not endure. A week later, 2 bikers came into view. Scouts from rival tribes. They observed without saying anything. Left tracks near the animals too closely. Once more, T dozed off with her blade. Aoka slowed down, observing the sky and interpreting the wind. The chief then abruptly reappeared. A veil of dust surrounded his horse. His eyes were fire, yet he appeared older and thinner. He said, "You've kept them alive." "They have also retained you." Lawson remained silent. "To take them home I came." With wide eyes, Aoka stood between them. Tiva remained still. After clenching his fists, Lawson opened them once more. "They make that decision." The leader turned to face his oldest. She turned her gaze to the rancher. Like breath held too long, the wind flowed between them. She came up and simply and boldly took Lawson's hand. Her words were, "I am home." The chief let out a breath. A sound of tranquility rather than joy or agony. He got on his horse and rode out to the left. No farewell, no blessing. Under the cottonwood tree, where water had once transformed everything, stood Lawson and Aoka. As if roots were established in this way, she let her fingers to glide into his once again. Although they made no promises or shared a kiss, Lawson. Brant realized he had erected barriers to keep the outside world out as the sun set behind the barn and the wind carried the scent of bread, smoke, and dirt. And it carried the remainder of his life somewhere along the way. Perhaps all it takes to change a man's destiny is one cup of water offered without expecting gratitude. Kindness might not be a gesture, it might be a gate. Additionally, if your porch is quiet for a sufficient amount of time, perhaps the proper people will find their way to it. With grace, not with clamor,